The room was quiet in the way hospice rooms often are just before sunset. Not silent, just softened. The blinds were half open, letting in that pale late afternoon light that turns everything a gentle gold. It rested across the blanket, across the patient's hands, across the small wooden table where a plastic cup of water sat untouched. The oxygen machine hummed in its steady rhythm. A clock ticked somewhere behind me. Slow, unhurried. I had just finished adjusting the pillows. Their breathing was shallow, uneven, the kind we recognize when the body is preparing to let go. I had seen this pattern many times before. The long pauses, the subtle changes in skin tone, the way the body begins to withdraw inward. Family had already said their goodbyes earlier that day. They had cried softly. They had kissed a forehead that no longer responded. They had whispered, "It's okay, you can rest now." And by all clinical measures, it was time. But something wasn't happening. The body was tired. The heart was fragile. Every sign told us we were close. And yet, there was a stillness in the room that didn't feel like ending. It felt like waiting. I pulled my chair closer to the bedside and sat down. Sometimes that's all we do in hospice. We sit, we listen, we pay attention to what cannot be measured. Their eyes were closed, but not tightly. The muscles in their face would soften, then gently tighten again, almost like someone concentrating. A faint crease between the brows, a small movement of the lips. Not speech, just the beginning of something. I leaned in slightly, thinking they might be trying to say a word, but no sound came. Only a breath, slow, careful, as if each one required intention. I've learned not to rush these moments. There are things that happen at the end of life that don't fit neatly into charts or textbooks. Things you only understand if you've sat beside enough beds, in enough quiet rooms, and noticed the subtle changes. The family thought it was lingering. The doctor gently explained that sometimes the body takes its time. But as I sat there, watching that faint crease return again and again, I began to feel something different. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't fear. It was purpose. Their hand, resting on top of the blanket, would occasionally press down, just slightly. Not enough to call attention, just enough to suggest effort, as if holding on to something invisible. I spoke softly. I told them I was there. I told them they were safe. For a moment, the tension in their face eased. Then it returned. Not pain, focus. The light in the room shifted as the sun lowered. Shadows stretched longer across the wall. The oxygen machine kept humming, steady and faithful. And still, they stayed. Hours passed the way hospice hours do, quietly, without announcement. Every sign said the body was ready, but something inside them was not finished. And I remember thinking, as I watched their breathing pause, then begin again, they are waiting for something. And I didn't yet understand what it was. Some people do not leave when the body is ready. They leave when the heart has finished what it came to do. I once cared for someone whose breathing held on, not from fear, but from purpose. The light in the room was soft that afternoon. Not bright, not dim. Not dim. Just the kind of pale, steady glow that settles over everything near the end of the day. The blinds were tilted halfway open, and thin lines of sunlight rested across the blanket, across the floor, across the curve of a quiet shoulder. The oxygen machine hummed beside the bed. A low, constant sound, familiar, comforting in its own way, the kind of sound that fades into the background after a while, like distant rain. I was smoothing the sheets when I noticed the pause. Not unusual. Pauses happen often at this stage. Breathing becomes uneven. A few shallow breaths, then stillness, then a slow return. I waited. One breath came, then another, fragile but present. By every measure we use in hospice care, the body was preparing to let go. The skin had taken on that delicate, almost translucent quality. The hands were cool despite the blankets. The pulse was faint, a soft flutter under my fingertips. The family had already gathered earlier in the day. They had cried. They had whispered reassurances. They had said the words we often guide them toward. It's okay. We'll be all right. You can rest now. And usually after that, the body allows itself to soften completely. But this time, something was different. It wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden movement, no startling moment. It was quieter than that. It was in the face. Even with closed eyes, there was a faint tension in the brow, a slight tightening around the mouth. Not pain. I know what pain looks like. This was something else. It was concentration. I pulled a chair close and sat down. Sometimes the most important thing we do is sit. We don't fix. We don't hurry. We witness. Another pause in the breathing. Longer this time, I found myself leaning forward slightly, not out of alarm, but curiosity. The body seemed ready. Everything in me clinically said we were near the final moments, but then a breath returned. Not accidental, not reflexive, intentional. I spoke softly. I'm here. No response, at least not in a way most people would recognize. But the crease in the forehead eased for a second. Just a second. Then it returned. Over the years, I've learned that dying is rarely random. It may look that way from the outside, but often there is something unfinished. A conversation. A reconciliation. A moment they are waiting for. Sometimes it's a person who hasn't arrived yet. Sometimes it's a word that hasn't been spoken. Sometimes it's something far more private. The room was quiet except for the hum of the oxygen and the gentle ticking of the wall clock. Each second felt round and heavy, like it carried weight. I reached for their hand. It rested on top of the blanket, thin and cool. When I placed my fingers around it, there was the faintest response. Not a squeeze, just a subtle pressing of the palm downward, as if grounding themselves. That small movement stayed with me. The family had stepped out to get coffee. They were exhausted. Grief has a way of draining even before loss arrives. I told them I would stay, so it was just the two of us in that room. And the waiting. Another long pause, the kind that makes you count silently in your head. 1, 2, 4. Then a breath, drawn in slowly, carefully, as if it required effort to choose it. That was when I understood. This was not a body struggling to survive. This was a person holding on. There is a difference. Struggle feels chaotic. The muscles tighten. The jaw clenches. The breath fights. This felt steady, measured, almost deliberate. I glanced at the bedside table. There, beneath a folded tissue and a pair of reading glasses, was a small, worn notebook. I had seen it earlier when the family was gathered. One of them had mentioned it casually. They've been writing in that thing all week. Writing. Even in weakness, even when the hands trembled. I stood slowly and picked it up. The cover was soft from use. The corners bent slightly inward. I hesitated. We are careful with privacy, careful with boundaries. But something in the room felt like permission. I opened to the last written page. The handwriting was shaky, letters uneven, but still legible. The sentence stopped halfway down the page, not because the thought was finished, because the strength had run out. I closed the notebook gently and returned to my chair. I didn't read it aloud. I didn't need to. The unfinished line lingered in the air anyway. Another pause and breathing. Longer now. The chest barely moved. And then, again, that faint tightening of the brow. Concentration. I leaned closer. "You're not done yet, are you?" I whispered. The oxygen hummed. The clock ticked. And beneath my fingers, I felt the slightest shift in their hand. Not fear. Not confusion. Resolve. Hours passed in that quiet rhythm. Breath. Pause. Breath. Pause. The family returned. They gathered softly around the bed. One of them stroked their hair. Another wiped away a tear before it could fall. "We're here," someone said. The brow relaxed for a moment, but when the room settled again, when conversation faded, the tension returned. It wasn't about the family. It wasn't about waiting for someone else. It was about something only they could complete. The sun dipped lower, and the golden light turned to gray. I picked up the notebook again. This time, I placed it gently on the blanket, near their resting hand. Nothing happened, at first. Then, the faintest movement. The fingers shifted, slowly, weakly, but intentionally. The room became very still. One of the family members gasped softly, but I raised my hand just slightly, asking for quiet without words. The hand moved again, brushing against the edge of the notebook. The breathing grew shallow, paused, returned, paused longer. And in that space between breaths, I saw something change. Not physically, not in a way I could chart, but in the room itself, as if something invisible had been acknowledged. The hand did not have the strength to lift a pen. That much was clear. The body had gone too far. But the notebook rested there. And sometimes finishing something does not mean writing the last word. Sometimes it means letting it be enough. The brow softened. The jaw relaxed. The tension I had been watching for hours simply eased. The next pause in breathing came. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No return. The family leaned closer. I kept my hand on theirs. There was no struggle, no sharp inhale, no sudden movement, just stillness. And in that stillness, I understood. They had not been refusing to die. They had been waiting to finish one thing, not a sentence, not a task, but the quiet act of choosing the moment. And when it was finished, when whatever needed to settle inside had settled, they let go in the gentlest way I have ever witnessed. Even now, when I sit beside other beds and hear that soft hum of the oxygen machine, I remember that afternoon light, that small, worn notebook, that steady resolve in a fragile body. And I remember how sometimes, at the very end, the strongest part of a person is not their heart or their lungs. It is their will to complete what matters most. The first time I noticed it, the room sounded like it always does near the end. The oxygen concentrator hummed in its steady, low rhythm, a soft mechanical breath supporting a human one. The curtains were slightly open, and late afternoon light rested gently against the wall. The sheets made that faint cotton sound when I adjusted them beneath my hands. Nothing unusual. Their breathing was shallow, uneven, the kind we recognize as the body slowly stepping back from itself. There were longer pauses now, longer spaces between inhales. Their mouth was slightly open, lips dry. Despite the swabs we had used earlier, their hands lay still on top of the blanket, palms relaxed. From a clinical standpoint, everything suggested we were close. The family had already gathered. They had said what they needed to say: apologies, gratitude, love. Some of them cried openly. Some stood in quiet disbelief. One of them whispered, "You don't have to hold on anymore."